Welcome back to an Introduction to Cognition. Module 1.1 focuses on the question, what is cognition? For those of you joining this course, this video series through YouTube, feel free to contribute to the class discussions happening at blogs.umbc.ca/cognition. Let's begin. One of the central ideas in cognitive psychology is that the human mind, and in particular our mental processes and structures, can be studied using the scientific method. So we're going to explore throughout this course what are the types of issues that cognitive psychologists are interested in, and how do they explore them? How do they study them? What do we know about how the mind operates? As we explore the question of what is cognition throughout this semester, we're essentially asking the question of how is it that people come to know about their world? We do know that they've got hearing and vision and taste and touch and smell and also movement senses. But how do they take that information and come to an understanding of the world around them? The other thing that we need to focus in on is what are the mental processes and structures that underlie that generation of understanding. Now, there are many different philosophical approaches to this question and also practical approaches, and we'll try to touch on many of them throughout this course. So we're focusing here on cognition as the scientific study of the human mind. In one sentence, let's define what cognition is. It is the scientific study of mental processes. Now we need to define what mental processes are, and we'll explore that throughout the rest of this course. However, for now, generally, we can talk about mental processes as the way that the mind both represents and processes information. So what does a cognitive psychologist study? Again, very generally and briefly here, a cognitive psychologist will be involved in many different areas of study regarding the human mind. We might take a biological approach from a cognitive neuroscience perspective. We might be focused on the perception and attention associated with incoming information. How do we attend to this piece of information while ignoring that piece of information, for example? We're also interested in human intelligence, memory, how knowledge is represented, artificial intelligence, language, child development and adult development, thinking and concept development. So you can see that there's a whole range of things that fit within the scope of cognitive psychology. How does the study of cognition impact us in our daily lives? Well, there are a whole world of examples out there. I'll just focus in on three. The first one, the classroom. Teachers and educators have taken knowledge of how we remember and learn information in order to make their educational programs and their educational environments more enriching for the student, so that the student can effectively learn the material, the skills, the values associated with that particular discipline. Telephone companies are also interested in designing better communication systems that take advantage of how we perceive sound, for example. And these days, how we perceive visual information. We know that our cell phones have both the capability for audio and also visual information. A career in cognition may also land you on the launch pad of NASA. So NASA, for example, will employ cognitive psychologists because there's a whole bunch of things that need to be taken into consideration when designing a cockpit. So, for example, the location of one dial in relation to another can be very important, especially if you have to switch back and forth between looking at the first and the second dials. Cognitive psychologists understand what those either facilitation or negative influences are on our ability to shift from one location to another to read and understand the information being presented on a particular dial. In the operating room, doctors and nurses need to listen to bells and whistles, and again, similar to the telephone companies, there's an interest in designing the warning systems so that we don't habituate to the sounds and start ignoring critical information that's being presented to us. So those are just a few ways of how the study of cognition has already impacted you in your daily lives. One of the questions that we can ask is, why does cognition deserve your attention? And according to Mayer in 1981, and also in his book that he republished in 1991, he said that cognition is fundamental for everyone to understand because it's so widespread. Cognition is a dominant theme in psychology. It was in 1981. It still is today. It is important for us in the whole range of topics, from memory to friendships. It's also current. Cognition offers a fresh point of view of looking at and understanding how the mind works. And it's full of promise. Cognition provides a way of looking at psychological processes from the inside, and as such, it is unique to psychology and science. So whether you are interested in going on in a career in business, marketing, accounting, or if you're interested in following up your psychology degree with a degree in education, or if you're going to continue on in cognition, cognition is everywhere. It's omnipresent. And way back in 1967, Neisser stated that it is apparent that cognition is involved in everything a human being might possibly do, that every psychological phenomena are cognitive phenomena. Another way of looking at the omnipresence of cognition is the type of questions that we can ask. So we can ask a broad range of questions, some developmental, some regarding memory, some regarding how we set up the dials and bells and whistles in our vehicles. So for example, we can ask the question, what are you aware of? And we can ask it from many different perspectives. We can ask whether hypnosis really does improve our memories. Are children really blank slates? Why is it that my grandmother is using shorter, simpler words, and how can this effect be mitigated? Cognition is everywhere. Cognition and cognitive psychology is a science, and as such, we're going to focus on an experimental approach to addressing these sorts of questions. So where is cognition going in the 21st century? Well, we've got a new set of tools that we can use to explore how the mind operates, how it works. Currently, we're engaging or embracing a set of tools in the neuroimaging sphere. So tools such as magnetic resonance imaging that we're now using to study the function of the brain. So we call that functional magnetic resonance imaging. We're also using other neuroimaging tools such as PET, MEG, EEG, and some other tools that we have available to us. Importantly, or more importantly, are the types of themes that are changing. And with any discipline, some themes come and go and they bounce back and forth. Today, a large part of our focus is on cognition as embodied. That is, that the way we move, the way we interact with our world is important to how we represent knowledge. We'll talk lots about that throughout this course. Another theme that has gained steam, I would say, in the past 10-15 years is that cognition and emotion cannot be separated. In fact, you'll find lots of places where they offer a course called Cognition and Emotion. Another theme that's more prominent these days is that cognition varies. There's a lot of individual difference between you and I, but there are also some similarities. So how is it that one cognitive process may be similar with one group of people and have subtle differences with other people, or not so subtle differences with another group of people? The other aspect is that cognition is big. We're now exploring our thinking about thinking, or what we term metacognition. I hope you have a sense of what cognition is, and that you have come to appreciate that cognition is one of the superpowers of psychology. And we're going to explore that throughout the rest of this semester. So now that we've addressed the question of what is cognition, I'd encourage you to enhance this learning by reading more about it through this book called Cognitive Psychology and Cognitive Neuroscience that is available through Wiki Educators. Please follow the link that is provided.